We said that we must accept the semantic criteria of distinguishing phraseological units from free word groups as a major one. According to Kunin, a phraseological unit is a stable word group characterized by a completely or partially transferred meaning. This definition clearly suggests that the degree of semantic change in a phraseological unit may vary, completely or partially. In actual fact, the semantic change may affect either the whole word group or only one of its components. The following phraseological units represent the first case. For example, to skate on thin ice, which means to put oneself in a dangerous position, to take risks. To wear one's heart on one's sleeve, which means to expose so that everybody knows one's most intimate feelings. To have one's heart in one's boots, which means to be deeply depressed, anxious about something. To have one's heart in one's mouth, which means to be greatly alarmed by what is expected to happen. To have one's heart in the right place, which means to be a good, honest, and generous fellow. A crow in borrowed plumes. It's a person pretentiously and unsuitably dressed. A wolf in a sheep's clothing. It's a dangerous enemy who plausibly poses as a friend. The second type is represented by phraseological units in which one of the components preserves its current meaning and the other is used in a transferred meaning. For example, to lose one's temper, or to keep one's temper, to fly into a temper, to fall ill, to fall in love, or to fall out of love, to stick to one's word, or to stick to one's promise, to arrive at a conclusion, bosom friends, shop talk, small talk, etc. Here we are on dangerous ground because the borderline dividing phraseological units with partially changed meanings from the so-called semi-fixed or non-phraseological word groups, which are marginal cases, is uncertain and somehow confusing. The term idiom is mostly applied to phraseological units with completely transferred meanings, that is, to the ones in which the meaning of the whole unit does not correspond to the current meanings of the components. There are many scholars who regard idioms as the essence of phraseology and the major focus of interest in phraseological research. And now let us speak about structural criterion. The structural criterion also brings forth the distinctive features characterizing phraseological units and contrasting them to free word groups. Structural invariability is an essential feature of phraseological units, though, as we shall see, some of them possess it to a lesser degree than others. Structural invariability finds expression in a number of restrictions, and the first one is restriction in substitution. As a rule, no word can be substituted for any meaningful component of a phraseological unit without destroying its sense. The idiom, for example, to give somebody a cold shoulder means to treat somebody coldly, to ignore or cut him. But if we say to give somebody a warm shoulder or a cold elbow, it will make no sense at all. The meaning of a bee in somebody's bonnet has been explained, if you remember. But a bee in somebody's hat or in somebody's cap would sound a silly error, one of those absurd slips that people are apt to make when speaking a foreign language. At the same time, in free word groups, substitution does not present any dangers and does not lead to any serious consequences. In the cargo ship is carrying coal to Liverpool, all the components can be changed. The ship, the boat, carries or transports or brings coals to any port. And the second one is restriction in introducing additional components. The second type of restriction is a restriction in introducing any additional components into the structure of a phraseological unit. In a free word group, such changes can be made without affecting the general meaning of the utterance. This big ship is carrying a large cargo of coal to the port of Liverpool. In the phraseological unit, to carry coals to Newcastle, no additional components can be introduced, nor can one speak of the big white elephant. Of course, when using the white elephant in its phraseological sense, or about somebody having his heart in his brown boots or in his red boots. Though in fiction we meet variations of idioms for different stylistic purposes. For example, in Vanity Fair, Zachary uses the idiom to build a castle in the air like that. While dressing for dinner, she built for herself a most significant castle in the air, of which she was the mistress. But in oral speech, phraseological units mostly preserve their traditional structures and resist the introduction of additional components. And the third one is grammatical invariability. Sometimes students make typical mistake for foreigners by using the plural form to find fault with somebody. For example, the teacher always finds faults with the boy. Though the plural form in this context is well-founded, it is a mistake in terms of the grammatical invariability of phraseological units. A similar typical mistake often occurs on the unit from head to foot. Students are apt to use the plural form of foot in this phrase. Yet again, as in the case of restriction in introducing additional components, there are exceptions to the rule, and these are probably even more numerous. So one can build a castle in the air, but also castles. A shameful or dangerous family secret is described as skeleton in the cupboard. The first component being frequently and easily used in the plural form, as in, I'm sure they have skeletons in every cupboard. A black sheep is a disreputable member of a family who, in especially serious cases, may be described as the blackest sheep of the family.